Go read a book, you illiterate son of a thief. Step up your vocab.
I'm Shakara, coming at you like Cleopatra with a brand new Books and Looks. For those of you that are new, thank you for stopping by. Books and Looks is a series where I put on my makeup and I talk to you about a book that I've read. So today's book is Ntozake Shange's For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is. I came to know this book through my writing community. I heard many of the ladies in my writers groups and also in different poetry circles that I am in talking about it. I also heard about it being a Tyler Perry movie, this I believe, about it being to get it. So I just had seen the classic cover, so I went to the library to see the classic cover. So instead they had another cover that I really wasn't familiar with, so I decided to get this classic cover. So once I opened the book into Ntozake Shange's origin story of how she began to creating this choreo poem. She began in the Bay Area of California. She's a poet, and she just started traveling in different circles and she was meeting a lot of different women writers, and she was reading different women writers, and she was also taking dance classes. So as she's taking the dance classes, she's really learning to love on her body. And through that, she began writing for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough. She was doing such a great job when she was in California along with one of her collaborators. And then when they went to New York, it was just a whole different ball game. She was not getting the reception that she was getting from California. So she had to have a friend help her out to make it work for the New York audience. And after that tweaking, it became a great success. She also learned to let go of the project to let other people direct it, because she started to learn that it was great enough to survive on its own. And then she began seeing the poems as one poem, making the whole thing a choreo poem. So let's break down choreo and poem. So it is a dance poem that we see all throughout of the book. The book begins with all of the characters running on stage. We have the lady in yellow, we have the lady in red, we have the lady in brown, we have the lady in purple, we have the lady in yellow, and those are the main characters that stand out to me. They are on the stage. It says they come out as distressed, and then they pause, they freeze in different states of distress. And then the lady in let me check the book. Brown. The lady in brown begins to tell her story, her poem, about how she was younger and she was at a party. Parties, neighborhood boys, and they were celebrating a graduation, and she no longer has her virginity anymore. And then the women go into explaining how men can take advantage of women in different situations. So this book gets really deep really quickly. It begins with talking about, it goes with talking about date rape, about how the women think that the men that's going to approach them, how the men that are going to approach them, they are strangers, but then they ultimately end up being their friends. And it's like, what do you say to that? How do you wrap your mind around your friend doing something so horrible and something not so good to you? And this takes place, actually, the book was written in the late 70s, so it really touches on some timeless things that happen to women. These women are able to share their stories of, as I mentioned, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and running away from home to find a better life for themselves. And all throughout the poem, all throughout the poetry of the book, the women do have a solid sense of sisterhood all throughout the book. You can really tell that they're going through something, but they're going through something together. And while the names of the women are revealed until the very end, I believe Shange does that on purpose. She does that to tell us that this could be any woman at any time, any particular colored woman at the time. And the women really, really dive deep into who they are. At the end of the book, the women come together to embrace who they are, and they decide to still remain hopeful and to keep moving forward. And they all have reached their rainbow, or at least they all trying to get to their rainbow. So all in all, I have read this book 3 times, and it's a small book, but it's just so impactful. Once I got done reading, I felt like that SpongeBob meme where he's like, whoa, what did I just get into? It's just so brutally honest. And for me, especially as a young Black woman, it made me feel seen and heard. And for these women, these characters, to be so vulnerable and authentic really challenged me to be authentic in my art as well. I'm giving this book 4 lipstick because it's nothing like I've ever read before. It is brutally honest, it is authentic, and it makes me feel empowered to be a Black woman. Shange's choreo poem inspired Chicago-based poet Heather Byrd Roberts to craft a piece of her own.
The show. Okay, here we go. Woo! Wow, I'm nervous now. I've been doing this for like the whole weekend. And my intuition let me know that I was missing something. Something important. Something I didn't even know existed. A bond. Some story I could dive into and witness my reflection ripped open. Radiant and drowning. Something real. Addiction as curly as my hair. Combined consonants only I could comprehend. A representation. An exhaustion. An emotionally draining month and a half of rehearsals, understanding the words weren't just a language shoved into my mouth. The vowels were air. A battle. Trying to comprehend the rumble in my bones every time I stepped foot outside my house. Knowing the dead weight this mask carried across the stage was truth, rubbing hard against everything I knew and pulling me into everything I didn't. The joy and jump rope me. Singing songs my tongue hadn't floated across since I believed in the tooth fairy. The dancing to release a predatory response in men believing they were entitled to knowing, and I didn't need any more apologies. A dance with women who understood the complexity of our sexuality, the forgiveness and buoyancy in our skin, and the constant battle to love, even ourselves. We knew this story all too well, but we were missing the importance of visibility, of freedom. We were missing the opportunity to be whole. And you know, we are whole. We were missing something, and then Ntozake found it. And then some girl said, "Is there one called for white girls?" And that's spring 2014. For other girls who don't believe colored girls deserve the rainbow. For the club I didn't ask to be invited to, but found to be home. For the theater department that never had an all-black cast until 2009. For my tears acknowledged and shape-shifted into productions. For the blue lights on black girls. For the nude anything I was supposed to wear. For the comb too fine to untangle me. For the smoke alarms in Murder Hall when my hair rejected flat irons. For the swastikas, the hangmen, and the nooses. For the amount of times they wanted to call me a nigger. And for the amount of times they didn't. For the amount of times there weren't any repercussions. For the meeting where my mama apparently gave birth to a ghost. For the explanations of the new diversity committee. For the count on one hand of the professors of color. For the lost count of the custodial staff's key Swahili whispers. For the time a volcano erupted from my mouth. For the stories I was forced to digest without entry. For the television-soiled fingerprints of the Atlantic. For my tongue twisted round Columbus. For the chitlins seared into my nostrils. For my non-double Dutch whelps. For these hips juking way before Becky or Miley. For the repetition rumble underneath these bones. For my protection against fear. For the tremors my body couldn't silence after Sandra Bland. For the rainbow buried underneath Chicago smog. For my transformation, my humanization, my refuge, for Byrd.
watching Books and Looks. Please comment down below what books you would like me to read, and that we can